Gretchen.
Hey Kevin, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Are you in London now?
Yep. We just moved over the weekend.
Okay. How are things getting settled?
They're going. We both have working phones now, so that feels good. I feel we were just talking about this. We just went and picked up some takeout for dinner because it's 7 o'clock now. Uh, and I was just telling Tess that I
Uh,
feel this combination of like incompetence and thwarted because everything is so much harder than like it appears. So yeah, so just little things like I thought I
yeah.
had figured out how our phone plans would work, and then like I get here and realize that like no, what I had planned like is not going to work, and then that like I had figured out like our bike situation, and then I like just tried to go buy a bike and like it was not going to work. Like the guy, it was still in a box, and the guy, we had this whole exchange. Anyway, so just like on most fronts, it's like nothing's as easy as you think.
Yeah. You can't plan for everything. Just
Yeah.
gotta do it. My connection is spotty, so I'm gonna turn off my video so I can stay online. Hey Jay. Hey Totally.
Yeah, if I am choppy, I'll cut my video.
Yeah. Oh, also, Gretchen, if you have time after the meeting, I can show you the how to add somebody to Scanner.
That'd be
It's
awesome. Thank
really
you.
fast, super easy, but easier. It'll be super. It's faster if I just show you and then try to like write instructions out or something.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. How's it going, everyone?
So far, so good.
All right.
Mm.
My neighbor Jim, I like see him a lot in the mornings, and I always ask him how he's going. He always replies, "So far, so good." He's retired, so he's just like, that's his answer as far as it goes. Hey, Rob. And I think Dan's not coming. He's like in transit or he's doing something, but he's not coming to the meeting today.
Ah, okay. I did not know. I did not realize that. So, I mean, I guess that this is it then.
Yeah, so
So let's go ahead and get started with analyst updates.
Hello. Um, the only question that's come up is the one that Justin Shell brought up with the like styles rendering, um, that prompted a little bit of discussion. I think it was I think it was last week. And Rob, you mentioned that you might have like a really bad fix, but I don't know if yeah,
Yeah,
that's really like
that's it. That's it's there. I just haven't had time to clean it up so that it's not totally atrocious. It's just bad, um, and I just need to get that done, and then I can post a pull request for it. I was hoping to have time to do that this morning, but instead, I was trying to deal with more issues around the Internet Archive importing.
mm. The other thing is like I think it's mostly an issue when people are writing reports and want to take a screenshot. Um, so it depending on the the ease of fixing it up, it could be something where it's like I don't know if it'd be easier for just kind of a one-time ask of like, hey, is there something you can do for this one shot? Nope, the other would be easier. Okay. um, cool. Okay, that's basic. That's the only analyst update. I have not yet worked on the list of URLs that we're actively watching. But I'm hoping to get it, probably not this week, but next week I'll do that. That's it.
Okay, and since Dana's not here, we can all just read his updates. Basically, I don't have, and I'll skip on to mine. I don't really have a lot to report other than I have just today begun working on the web monitoring kube, trying to stand that up. So far seems pretty straightforward. Really the only questions I've had for Dan so far have been just about, the best, some of the configuration values. But I'm ready today. I've got my testing namespace created, and I created like a whole separate set of sheets for UI and things like that, so that this testing deployment can just be really isolated from our other things. But I should be ready to stand up a testing namespace today. And then I'm going to try to start work on the logging piece, because that's my actual deliverable that I need to work on ahead of the relaunch for prod. And that's all I have.
I can go next. I met with two interested contributors. They're both CS students. Will Bradshaw, he's from the Virginia UVA, and then Annie, I don't know where she's from, but she's been an analyst on the team. They both probably were gonna look into the processing repo because they had more Python experience. Annie she's a sophomore, so she's just kind of like learning like Git and stuff like that. So I told both of them the best thing to do really to get into the project is just read closed PRs, commits, and the conversation. They both thought that was like very helpful. So they're going to spend a lot of time just trying to get the repo stuff and then reading through closed PRs just to see how the code has changed and how it works. So we'll see how they get back. So in talking to them, we found out that like our architecture page on the main web monitoring repo is like severely out of date, and so I built on PatCon's OPR about like clarifying the README, and so just added on top of that, and then moved stuff out of the README into the architecture. I wasn't sure. I was kind of overzealous. It didn't seem like anything in the architecture had remotely to do with what we're doing anymore at all. So I kind of just got rid of all of it, but that might have been too much. And then I added Jason instead. Ray was like as the main point of contact, so I put Jason in there instead. Yeah, and so it's like a kind of work in progress PR, so people can read over it, and try to fix things up and stuff. Rob, you look confused. Do you have a question? Where
is it?
I linked to it. Is that not linked? I linked. I just like push additional commits on top of the PR that PatCon and I started at 105.
Oh, that's super confusing, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Because he added like some stuff. It just made sense because it was just been sitting there and it didn't look like he's going to come back to it. So I figured, is that not good? Is that not a good thing to do?
Oh, it's just confusing for me because I didn't know anything had happened.
What do you mean?
Because it looks like there's no new stuff because it's just the PR that PatCon was doing.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a different scope of work. Oh. It's fine. Like, just that would have been helpful to know because otherwise I assumed it was just sitting on your plate to get to at some time.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd like looked at something.
Yeah, I just noted in the original issue, I had just posted today that I added to the 105, so maybe I don't know. That should have showed up. Anyways, if that's okay, or I can pull it out. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's fine. Now I know. It's just I think in general it's helpful if you're doing something that's a different scope of work, even if it's overlapping, to do a different pull request, especially if something else is stalled, because it means you're now making your work blocking on somebody else's work, which is stalled for some other reason. And so like, then you're blocked by an old conversation that everybody who wants to figure out what you're trying to do has to re-up themselves on.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's there now. It's fine. It's no big deal. Just like,
Yeah.
it's helpful to keep those things separate rather than like optimistically merging them together like that.
Yeah.
I've done that plenty of times in the past in my career, and it's more often a problem than it is an aid.
Okay. I'll remember that. That makes sense. Okay. But it's there. And I think all of it needs to be reread anyways in totality. So, yeah. And like I said, it's kind of like a straw man. It's just like slash and burn, do whatever needs to be changed. Yeah. And then up next, Michelle Hertzfield, Megahertz. So she reached out to me last week to meet, and she wanted to like have a sense of like my experience on web monitoring. I think she's gonna, especially like on the end user side. And then I said that Gretchen might be a good person to talk to as well. So I'll do an intro email Gretchen next week after I have my meeting with her is tomorrow. So then just like, I don't know like exactly what's gonna happen. So once I know, I'll be like, okay, here's what happened when I introduced you guys. But I feel like it made sense to talk to her because she's been trying to like sit down. She's from Protocol Labs, one of our partners, so she's been trying to get me to sit down and talk to her for a while.
Interesting. I'm curious what comes of that. I know her well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I feel like for what she's working on, you're probably not the right person to talk to, but maybe you are. Maybe she's doing something else, and I think so.
I think it's more just like she's trying to get to know the people in the staff, kind of people in Edgy that's sort of related to her work, and so just to like know us because Edgy is going to be working with Protocol Labs for the next however long, so she wants to get to know us a little bit. So it's like that too. Yeah. And that's it.
Okay, well, I don't see any other discussion items. Well, gosh, we're only 13 minutes in. Is there anything else that we need to discuss before we break?
I'm probably just going to shove that Internet Archive importing into production tonight, even if it's not merged, because it's at least functional, and we can decide whether we want to merge and continue to work on it separately or keep it as a PR until it's better. I didn't have a chance to put down the 5 billion things in my head about it. There's a lot on the pull request for it. It's, if you want to look at it, it's stupendously horrifying code. It's up there with the HTML differ in terms of like really, really terrible stuff. But it works. I think the big thing that I learned yesterday, because yesterday was the first time that I really seriously tried to run it against everything in the staging database. The staging database is now slightly smaller than production, but basically to try and get something close to all the pages we're tracking for a 3-day period out of Internet Archive, which I think is about what we want to run on a daily basis. Because I've been trying to do all the ETL stuff has some overlap back in time, so that every time you run it, it overlaps with what ran before. In case something failed, then it's sort of like self-healing, which has been super helpful with Versionista because it fails randomly every so often for a few versions, but because every hour when we run it, it overlaps the past 3 hours, it's pretty much self-healing. If it doesn't error on the next run, then everything is fine. You don't have to remediate the error that happened before. So I was thinking to do the same thing. So I did some runs with it going for scraping a 3-day period of every URL that's tracked in the staging database. And the thing that I learned was at a smaller scale, it seemed like adding a lot of synchronization between the different threads was an aid, so that when one thread was backing off, all all the threads would back off with it. Like if the server returned an error. But the lesson I learned in trying to do a full scrape was largely, what I was actually seeing is that Internet Archive is just operating at such a scale that there are a lot of just spurious failures. And backing off all the threads when one fails is actually not doing anything useful. Which is nice. It simplifies the code a lot. It's just frustrating. It's another one of those where you're like, I spent all this work on making sure everything intricately worked together. And now it's like, nope, everything should just ignore everything going on around it. Just focus on its lane. Simpler, nicer. It's just like, oh, I got to throw out all that stuff that I did. But bonus is, so the first run that I did from it took about 11 hours to pull in all that data. And now it takes 2-ish. It's still running on the latest, hopefully speedy one. It's at an hour and a half, and it's pretty close to should be having everything. So yeah, probably 2-ish hours without all the synchronization stuff, which is good. And yeah, that's the general status of that, I guess. There's a whole bunch of random thoughts about things that need to be cleaned up or fixed on it at the bottom of that PR, a laundry list of stuff. And probably we don't need to worry about addressing all of it before we merge, but some of it at least.
Well, that's great news. They're going from an 11-hour run to a 2-hour run is not insignificant.
Yeah, there's a lot of holdup when everything is like, whoa, time to take a break, when it actually doesn't need to. And over the scope of roughly 33,000 records that you're pulling in, that's a lot. It adds up. And for general numbers, so what winds up happening is when we query CDX for all the changes on the domains we care about, we generally see about 360,000 records or so. And then by scoping that down to just the ones that have roughly matching URL keys, so the ones that are probably URLs we're tracking, that scopes down to about 40,000 changes. And then what winds up happening out of that is, on any given run, somewhere between 20 and 35% of those are non-playbackable, which is the reason you'll see is one of the things I wrote in that PR is we should probably do some caching of URLs that we found that were non-playbackable, so that the next time we do an overlapping run, we don't try and pull the non-playbackable ones again. And we get somewhere, depending on our retry algorithms, we generally get somewhere between 1% and 3% failures, and we get probably about 2% that are things listed in CDX that don't actually exist. Which is one of the interesting problems with Wayback is CDX will list everything that it ever tried to do, but if a URL was complete idiocy, and it is impossible to even try and retrieve, the Memento system will say, what are you even asking for? This isn't here, as opposed to it's not playbackable, or you should go see some other Memento. It'll actually give you a 404. And we have some filtering for all the weird ones that I've seen and pulled out as obvious, where a URL gets HTTP shoved in front of it, and an email. And so an email is something about the crawler attempts to insert in its list of things to grab an email address as a URL. happens frequently, and various flavors of it too. Like sometimes surrounded by angle brackets, like sometimes not, sometimes like coded. Sometimes it'll stuff like a HTTP in front of a data URL, so like stuff that is like actually part of the page that can't be grabbed externally, and like totally malformed stuff. And so some of those we have filters that say, did this come in CDX? Ignore that, pretend it's not even there in the listing. But it's still, we still see like 2 or 3% of the pages that we attempt to grab wind up being probably things like that, where Wayback never actually stored it, because even though it attempted to grab it, it realized when it went to grab it that this URL it had scheduled was nonsense. Some of those I think also happened because of just malformed content in the page. But some of them I think are also like Wayback's scrapers being funny. So those are sort of the general numbers of like what we see in terms of a level of failure, what we see in terms of like stuff that's not actually there, or what we see in terms of things that aren't playbackable, and then how many we get for a 3-day period, which is less than I expected because we gave them a list of about the 30,000 that we're tracking, and they should be hitting those daily. And so I would have expected to see about 90,000 records over that time period, but instead we see like 40 to 50,000, which then get cut down from all the non-playbackable stuff and everything else. And then and that's, you know, some small, like a 1/6 or an 1/8 of the total number of things from those domains that Wayback has seen over that period of time. And it may also be that I'm seeing those smaller numbers because I'm pulling from the staging database, which may not be listing quite as many, or might not have the same overlap with what we told them to scrape for us. So it could also be that. But hopefully that like gives a general sense of what's going on. With the slightly faster stuff I've got now, it takes about 2 hours to do all that. So yeah.
That is good info. Thank you for that update, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Okay. Well, I will keep everybody apprised as I'm working on this stuff ahead of Saturday. You know, I'll make sure to be noisy about if things are looking like they're on schedule or not. I don't foresee any big problems, but I think that is a wrap for us. So thank you guys all for your time, and we'll just wrap a few minutes early today. Oh, totally. Oh yeah, bye. Oh, okay. Okay, bye all.
Bye.
Hey, can you stop the recording? Are you able to?
Oh yeah. Yes.